Murders and violence on the rise since Mexico launched an all-out crackdown on its drug cartels, and now there's a new study that links drug enforcement efforts to increases in violent crimes. And there is a big debate over what that means. Joining us now is the author of the study. Dr. Evan Wood is founder of the International Center for Science in Drug Policy, and John Walters is the former director of the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. He was the U.S. drug czar under President George W. Bush, currently executive vice president of the Hudson Institute. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Dr. Wood, since it's your study, let me begin with that. As I understand it, you examined roughly 300 international studies dating back 20 years. And the bottom line is, when police crack down on drug users and dealers, the result is almost always an increase in violence. That seems so counterintuitive. Explain it.
Well, it seems counterintuitive, but it's entirely consistent with what we see on the streets in North America. Conventional wisdom, I think everybody knows that by making these drugs illegal, the profit goes up and there's really been an enrichment of organized crime. But the prevailing wisdom has been that law enforcement, I don't want to be too critical of law enforcement, people who put their lives on the line every day to keep communities safer. But what we've basically seen is that when drug law enforcement takes these key players out of the market, there's a mad scramble to try and obtain or increase market share for these massive, lucrative, illegal markets. So conventional wisdom has been that police keep a lid on it, when according to the scientific literature, it suggests that when you take out key cartel members or even a dealer off the corner, turf wars ensue.
Yeah. Well, let me go to John Walters. As I understand it, you're pretty skeptical of this study. Do you think it's been misconstrued? Is it flawed?
It's Dumb and Dumber study. I mean, nobody believes this, not even a child. I mean, things have changed dramatically on the streets of New York City, the country of Colombia, repeatedly, where you finally challenge illegal violent groups, whether it's drug groups or other gangs, to reestablish the rule of law. Yes, there is a period, depending on how strong they are, where there is difficulty and there are horrifying things happen and people put their lives on the line. But this is to make you believe that Elliot Ness is responsible for Al Capone. And this is from the same group of people. I should say that your guest co-author, Richard Horton, is the same guy that created the phony scandal of excessive civilian deaths at the beginning of the Iraq War. So, again, they shouldn't even be given a microphone, if I could express my view.
Dr. Evan Wood, let me go back to you. The law doesn't create violence. Criminals do. And the best example of successful law enforcement that put down violence is my hometown of Los Angeles, where it recently hit a 50-year low in violent crimes, and that's because the chief of police, Bill Bratton, there cracked down on dealers and gangs. So isn't that the best example where law enforcement does a good job, not Mexico, where it's done an abysmal job?
Well, John really came out swinging there. So first of all, let me clarify. This is a study based on every English language study that has ever examined the association between drug law enforcement and violence, and it's been endorsed by some of the world's leading scientists. So let me just put that in perspective. Second of all, of course, law enforcement has a role in community safety, but I don't think most Americans know that the high levels of crime that they deal with in their cities, we simply don't see in other countries which seek to deal with drugs through alternative modes. The homicide rate in the U.S. is among the highest in the world. So you can give isolated examples, but the reality of the situation is that by making these drugs illegal, you enrich organized crime. They have huge resources to engage in violent conflict, right, and that's what you see on the streets of American cities.
Mr. Walters, you get the last word on this.
Well, it's not true. Drug use is down, as you pointed out, because of law enforcement, because of prevention efforts. We make bad decisions. We make bad decisions when we turn our back. We make bad decisions when we let people use drugs. The violence is caused by people under the influence of drugs, not just criminals, although they're bad too. We can make smart decisions, and to have somebody you never heard of tell you that every smart person says what you think is completely upside down is true just means you should tell him, I'm not listening to you. There are brave people every day. They're making a difference. We need to push forward.
John Walters, Dr. Evan Wood. Gentlemen, we're out of time, but thank you for being with us. Jane?
My pleasure.
Greg, we're about to get the latest